It was just an accident, right, Emma? David's voice was tense as he gripped my hand too tightly in the emergency room. I stared at him, the pain in my ribs making it hard to breathe. The concerned faces of the ER staff contrasted sharply, with my husband's forced smile and his mother's carefully crafted worried expression. My name is Emma, and 12 hours ago, my mother-in-law pushed me down our hardwood stairs. Now, I was lying in a hospital bed with 3 broken ribs, a sprained wrist, and a collection of bruises that made me look like an abstract painting. Tell them you tripped, dear Patricia, my mother-in-law chimed in sweetly. You've always been a bit clumsy. Her perfectly manicured hands clutched her designer handbag, her wedding rings catching the fluorescent light as she gestured dismissively. I closed my eyes, remembering the moment with crystal clarity. I'd been carrying a basket of laundry upstairs when Patricia appeared at the top. She'd shown up unannounced again, using the key David had given her without consulting me. Our argument about her constant intrusions had escalated quickly. "This is my son's house," she sneered, stepping closer. "You're just the replacement wife. The first one knew her place." Before I could respond, I felt her hands against my shoulders. The push wasn't subtle or accidental. It was deliberate, forceful, and accompanied by a small, satisfied smile that haunted me even now. "Mrs. Walker." The young ER nurse interrupted my thoughts. "I need to examine your injuries privately. Hospital policy." She gave David and Patricia a pointed look. "I'm her husband," David protested, "and my mother needs to wait outside." The nurse, whose name tag read Kelly, finished firmly. "Now please." Once they left, Kelly's professional demeanor softened. "Emma, I need you to be honest with me. These injuries are consistent with a fall, but the pattern suggests you were pushed. Did someone push you?" I hesitated. David would never believe me over his mother. Patricia had spent the last 3 years systematically undermining me, and my husband remained blind to it all. "I have proof," I whispered. Kelly leaned closer. "What kind of proof?" "Security cameras. I installed them 2 months ago, after my jewelry started disappearing." I pulled out my phone with my good hand, wincing at the movement. "I haven't checked the footage yet, but the stairs are covered." Kelly's eyes widened. "May I?" she asked, gesturing to my phone. I nodded, pulling up the security app. The footage was clear. Patricia's face twisted with malice, her hands extending the deliberate push. My fall was brutal to watch, but what happened next was worse. Patricia stood at the top of the stairs, watching me lie motionless at the bottom before calmly walking down, stepping over my body, and making herself a cup of tea in my kitchen. She'd waited 15 minutes before calling David, and only then did she call for an ambulance. "Oh my God," Kelly whispered. She looked at me, her professional composure cracking. "Emma, I need to make a call. This is attempted murder." "My husband won't believe it," I said softly. "He never does." "He won't have a choice this time," Kelly replied, her jaw set. "I'm calling the police. This isn't just domestic abuse. She waited before getting you help. She wanted you to be hurt badly." As Kelly stepped out to make her call, I heard Patricia's voice in the hallway. "David, darling, maybe we should look into putting Emma in therapy. These accusations about me, her paranoid behavior with those cameras, it's not healthy." "I know, Mom." David's response made my heart sink. "Once she's better, we'll get her the help she needs." I closed my eyes, tears sliding down my cheeks. 3 years of gaslighting, of having my things moved or broken with David telling me I must have misplaced them, of Patricia's snide comments and David's dismissals. But this time was different. This time I had proof. Kelly returned with 2 police officers. Through the small window in my hospital room door, I saw Patricia's perfectly composed face crumble as they approached. David looked confused, then angry as one officer took out a notebook. "Mrs. Walker," Kelly said, holding my phone, "would you like to press charges?" I took a deep breath, ignoring the pain in my ribs. "Yes," I said firmly. "Yes." Patricia's indignant screech echoed through the hallway as the officers began questioning her. "This is ridiculous. David, tell them your wife is unstable." But David wasn't looking at his mother. He was staring at my phone screen, watching the footage play out in horrible clarity. His face had gone pale, his hands trembling as he watched his mother, the woman he'd always defended, try to kill his wife. The next few days passed in a blur of police statements, medical examinations, and uncomfortable silences. I was released from the hospital with strict instructions to rest, and a prescription for pain medication that made the world feel slightly fuzzy around the edges. David insisted I come home, but I chose to stay with my sister Kate instead. He let her have a key to your house without asking you. Kate fumed as she helped me settle into her guest room, and he's been defending her behavior for 3 years. Emma, I knew it was bad, but this, she trailed off, arranging my medications on the bedside table. I thought about the past 3 years, the missing jewelry that Patricia had claimed I must have misplaced, the family heirlooms that disappeared when she visited only to show up in her house as things David gave her, the constant comments about my housekeeping, my cooking, my appearance, met with David's standard response. Mom's just trying to help. My phone buzzed again. Another message from David. Please come home. We need to talk about this. Mom's been arrested and they're treating her like a criminal. She is a criminal. Kate snapped, reading over my shoulder. She literally tried to kill you. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for the following week. The evidence was damning, not just the security footage, but the hospital records showing Patricia's deliberate delay in calling for help. The detective assigned to my case, a no-nonsense woman named Detective Martinez, had more questions. Mrs. Walker, we found something interesting while executing the search warrant at your mother-in-law's house, she said, spreading photographs across the table. Do you recognize these items? My breath caught. They're neatly laid out, were all my missing possessions, my grandmother's sapphire necklace, my mother's pearl earrings, even my engagement ring from my first fiancé, who had died in a car accident, something I'd tearfully searched for months ago. She took them, I whispered. All those times she said I was careless, that I lost things. We also found this. Detective Martinez slid another photo across the table. It was Patricia's phone, open to a text conversation with David from 3 months ago. Emma's becoming a problem. She's not good enough for you. Remember Karen? She knew her place. We need to do something about this one. Karen, David's first wife, who had mysteriously fallen down the same stairs 5 years ago. She had survived but moved away immediately after, divorcing David and refusing to speak to anyone about what happened. We've contacted Karen, Detective Martinez said quietly. She's willing to testify. The implications hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't just about me. Patricia had done this before, and David had he known? Had he suspected? That evening, David showed up at Kate's house. He looked terrible, unshaven, eyes red, clothes wrinkled. Emma, please, he said when I agreed to talk to him on the porch. You have to understand. Mom, she's not well. She needs help, not jail. If you drop the charges, did you know I interrupted? About Karen, about what your mother did to her. His silence was answer enough. They found my things. David, everything she stole. Everything you told me I was careless enough to lose. My voice was steady despite the trembling in my hands. The police found her texts to you about me being a problem, about doing something about me. I never thought she'd actually hurt you, he protested weakly. She's my mother, and I'm your wife. The words burst out of me, years of suppressed anger finally breaking free. You gave her a key without asking me. You dismissed every concern, every fear. You watched her steal from me, belittle me, break me down piece by piece, and you did nothing. You chose her over me every single time. Emma, no, I cut him off. I'm done. The police are reopening Karen's case. Your mother is going to face consequences for what she's done, and so are you. What does that mean? I pulled an envelope from my pocket. Papers my lawyer had drawn up that morning. It means I'm pressing charges against your mother for attempted murder and theft, and I'm divorcing you for conspiracy and emotional abuse. He stared at the envelope, his face draining of color. You can't do this. We can work this out once Mom gets help. Your mother pushed me down the stairs and watched me lie there injured for 15 minutes before calling for help. And I laughed bitterly. You told me I needed therapy for being paranoid. Well, guess what? The cameras I installed proved I wasn't paranoid at all. I stood up, ignoring the pain in my ribs. The detective found your mother's diary. David, pages and pages about how she got rid of Karen, how she was planning to get rid of me, and your texts encouraging her protective behavior. You're not innocent in this. His face crumpled. A facade of concerned husband, finally cracking. I'll lose everything. My job. My reputation. You should have thought about that before you chose your mother over your wife's safety. Twice. I turned to go back inside, then paused. Oh, and David, I'm keeping the house. It turns out attempting to murder your daughter-in-law is a great way to void any claim to property. Your lawyer can contact mine about the rest. I closed the door on his stunned face. leaning against it as Kate wrapped me in a gentle hug. "You did it," she whispered. "You're free." For the first time since my fall, I felt like I could breathe properly again. The truth was finally out, and neither Patricia nor David could hurt me anymore. 6 months later, I sat in the courtroom watching Patricia's carefully maintained composure crack as the judge delivered her sentence, 15 years, for attempted murder, with additional charges for theft and the reopened case with Karen. The evidence had been overwhelming: the security footage, her diary detailing both attacks, and Karen's powerful testimony about her own experience. She told me, "I was never good enough for her, David," Karen had testified, her hand shaking but her voice strong. Then one day, after months of psychological abuse, she pushed me down those same stairs. When I tried to tell David, he said I was confused from the fall. I knew then I had to leave. David hadn't fared much better. His text messages and documented pattern of enabling his mother's behavior had led to charges of conspiracy and accessory after the fact. He'd lost his job at the law firm when the story broke, his reputation in shambles. The divorce had been finalized 3 months ago, and he'd been sentenced to 5 years probation and mandatory counseling. As the bailiff led Patricia away, she turned to look at me one last time. The hatred in her eyes was still there, but now it was tinged with something else: defeat. She'd lost everything: her freedom, her social standing, and, most importantly, her control. "You did the right thing," Detective Martinez said, touching my shoulder gently as we left the courthouse. "Your case has encouraged 3 other women to come forward about similar experiences with their mothers-in-law. You've started something important here." I thought about those other women as I drove home to my newly renovated house. The first thing I'd done after the divorce was replace the stairs, not out of fear, but as a symbol of reclaiming my space. The security camera stayed, though, a reminder that trusting my instincts had saved my life. My sister Kate had helped me redecorate, removing every trace of Patricia's influence. The stolen items she'd taken from me now sat proudly displayed in my bedroom, each one a testament to my resilience. My grandmother's sapphire necklace caught the light as I passed my dresser, no longer hidden in Patricia's jewelry box. The doorbell rang. "Karen, right on time for our weekly coffee meeting." We'd formed an unexpected friendship during the trial, bonding over our shared experiences and recovery. "The house looks amazing," she said, settling onto my new couch, so different from when we were trying to please her. I handed her a cup of coffee. I know everything then had to be beige and proper. Now it's all about what makes me happy. Karen smiled, touching the bright throw pillow beside her. I did the same thing after I left, painted my whole apartment purple, just because I could. David hated purple. We shared a knowing look, both understanding the small acts of rebellion that helped us reclaim our lives. "Have you heard?" Karen asked, pulling out her phone. "They're starting a support group for women with abusive in-laws. They want us to speak at their first meeting." I looked at the website she showed me, breaking the silence, recognizing and responding to in-law abuse. The homepage featured resources, warning signs, and stories from survivors. "We should do it," I said, surprising myself with my enthusiasm. If I had known about other cases like ours, maybe I would have installed those cameras sooner. "Speaking of cameras," Karen grinned, "that security company that supplied your system? They want to feature your story in their new domestic safety campaign. Apparently, their sales of indoor security cameras have tripled since your case made the news." I laughed, thinking about how Patricia had always hated technology. She would hate knowing she'd become a cautionary tale. Later that evening, after Karen left, I stood in my kitchen, decorated my way, organized my way, and felt a profound sense of peace. The local news had called my case a watershed moment in recognizing in-law abuse. But for me, it was simpler than that. I trusted my instincts, protected myself, and refused to be silenced. My phone buzzed with a text from Detective Martinez. "Another case today. Woman installed cameras after reading about you. Caught her mother-in-law tampering with her medication. She's safe now. Thought you'd want to know." I smiled, running my hand along my new countertop. Patricia had always criticized my choice of home decor, but now, every bright color and modern fixture felt like a victory. I learned that sometimes the happy ending isn't about forgiveness or reconciliation. Sometimes it's about breaking free, finding your voice, and helping others find theirs. The support group meeting was scheduled for the next week. My story would be the first one shared, but not as a victim's tale. Instead, it would be a roadmap for other women. How to recognize the signs, how to protect yourself, and most importantly, How to reclaim your life. My security cameras blinked quietly in their corners, now less about protection and more about remembrance. They had given me back my power, my voice, and my future. In the end, Patricia's attempt to silence me had only made me louder, stronger, and more determined to ensure no other woman would suffer in silence as Karen and I had. As I got ready for bed that night, I caught my reflection in the mirror and saw something that had been missing during my years with David and Patricia: peace. I was finally, truly free.